after e4, c6, knight c3, d5, knight f3. So the Caro-Kann with the two knights is on the board. And in the latest video we went through knight f6 early on. So how to punish this move, e5, and in the previous video we went through knight d7 and so on. In this video we're going to go through knight e4. Now the crucial move here is knight to e2. We're avoiding swaps. We don't want black to take the knight here. Well, there's a very similar pattern in one of my videos about how to beat the Alekhine defense, so you can go and watch that as well to see all the similarities that appear. Anyway, what's happening after knight e2? We're avoiding the swap and we're threatening t3 is a very strong move because black is forced to go to c5 and it's stopping the black player from the possibility to play c5 pawn to c5 and then knight c6 in the natural development, and all of the black pieces will be cramped at some point. So we're going to start with this move now. Bishop to g4 following move. This is very popular. It's attacking the knight, but that's actually not a problem. We're just going to have to attack the bishop with h3. Two options we're going to go through: bishop takes and bishop h5. Let's start with bishop f3. Now here you can just take back obviously, and you're attacking the knight. The knight can go to c5 or g5. No other square is accessible. So knight g5 is met by knight f4, and the idea of the thematic e6 is coming soon. Not now, but here once again the knight is under threat of being trapped. h4 will trap the knight. This means that if black plays a normal move like e6, well, h4 wins already for white. So after h5, giving the knight a shelter in h7, white continues with h4 anyway, so knight h7, and now the thematic e6. Right now the game is already compromised. Taking the pawn is pointless. Of course we want to take the pawn in f7 and misplace the king, but now we can take back, and after the queen moves, black will love to see us giving away the knight for this silly, useless bishop, but of course we're not going to do it. White's next move is going to be bishop h3, defending the knight, with the plan of playing d4 and bishop f4. Position is already evaluated like +3, +4 more or less, so that's a catastrophic situation. Let's go through the best move that black can play. In this position, black's best move according to the engine is g5. Of course, the idea is that if we take that, knight g5 will be able to protect e6 and f7, and black will defend, and he will also be able to develop queen, bishop and rook fairly easily. Anyway, white gives a check, and after king takes, we now can take the pawn. Obviously here we're threatening g6, so after knight takes, white's best move is d4. We have an idea of taking the pawn in h5 with a discovered attack on the knight. If black plays bishop to g7, looks like he's going to be able to play maybe rook f8, king g8, maybe find a way to castle and some safety. He will never be able to castle queenside anyway. White continues with queen d3, threatening queen g6. Now there's nothing already left to do, so rook f8 with the idea doesn't work, right? Because queen g6 check, king g8, and now white doesn't even bother taking this knight because the best move is knight to h5, threatening checkmate. The bishop will be able to take this knight eventually. It's game over. So back a few moves here. Instead of rook f8, black plays the very natural queen to d6, trying to offer some defense on this 6th rank and then develop the rook later on. White continues with knight to h5. There's a discovered attack on the knight, and black's best move according to the engine is bishop takes in d4. First of all though, let's go through bishop h6. This move is to protect the knight a little bit further, but this move loses immediately because of queen f5, which is a fork, and now you're going to attack. There's double attack on the knight in g5. Queen cannot block because knight can take queen, so that's not possible. And black playing the best move, which is bishop to d4. Of course we cannot take the bishop because knight f3 will lose the queen. So again, queen f5 check, bishop blocks this time, but even then we're just going to take the bishop, and well, if queen takes, then we can swap everything. We have a free rook, and if black takes our rook for free, then we have this check which wins the queen. So from the start we play the two knights against the Caro-Kann, and knight f6 we attack immediately, and after knight to e4 in this variation we don't trade. So knight e2, bishop attacks the knight in f3, so we attack it immediately, and after take the knight has to move. So earlier we went through knight g5, let's go through knight c5. Now here we play d4 and the knight has to go away. So any square the knight goes to on this file will be misplacing it. So knight a4 for example will be bet by the thematic e6, and after pawn takes, white continues with h4, the idea of playing bishop h3. So what happens if black Let's have a look at this idea. Tries to castle queenside, where we can stop it from happening. Yeah, it looks easy to just play queen d6, knight d7, and then castle, but white continues with bishop h3, and if black pushes the pawn, then the black player will not be able to castle longside because of the bishop. And if black goes on with the... Now here white continues with b3, knight is forced away to b6, only square, and now knight f4, double attack here on e6, and it's just too late. Pushing the pawn is pointless. Knight e6 gives an incredible position for white. It's already evaluated +3 or something. And if black had castled long finally, same stuff. We just take the pawn, and we have an idea of playing bishop f4, which is deadly. So let's make an example. Let's say g6. White continues with a4, idea of playing a5 and misplays the knight in a8. And even if he were to be blocked with a5, for instance, the bishop f4. It looks like Qi could just play queen to b4, but now bishop back to d2. And when the queen goes back to d6, we can take the pawn in a5, pinning the knight to the rook. We're going to take the knight, and when the knight takes back, there's going to be a discovered attack when our knight moves. So after the best move by black, which is rook e8, nothing changes. One more line from this will be the two knights and early knight f6. So we attack the knight, knight e4, we don't trade. And after bishop g4, we attack the bishop. We don't care about being taken because now there's an attack of the knight, knight c5, d4. Let's go through knight d7. Again, we're going to play e6. Before we go through this line, actually, let's quickly go through knight e6, which is not good because white will play f4 with the threat of f5. Even if black were to play the defensive move g6 to stop f5, white will play h4. And it looks like after bishop g7, black will be able to castle and maybe play a normal game, but white continues with c3, best move, and after castling, white is ready to push f5. And it's pointless to move the knight away because white will play h5 with the idea of taking in g6. This trade cannot be avoided, so the idea is take the pawn, and then when the pawn takes back, when the f pawn takes back, you play knight to g3. Also, let's pay attention to the fact that black cannot challenge our center. There's no move basically. For example, e6 to involve the queen in the game is met by f6, and after bishop to h8 only move, white plays bishop to g5 to prepare pawn takes. When you take this pawn, the pawn in f cannot take back because of pawn f7 check, winning the queen. Whereas if after taking g6, black takes with the h pawn, then white will play the unstoppable mate in 5, queen to d3, queen to h3. And in this position we went back with the knight. What happens if the pawn takes? But this is even worse because bishop h3 makes life very easy for white.